Hey, what is up, mortals? It is AC here with a new video for you. Welcome to part 9 of What If Sir Nighteye Trained Deku. I just wanted to greet you guys by saying, sit back and relax, you're in for a treat. So, here we go. All Might was the symbol of peace. That was an unquestionable statement, a scientific certainty like the sky is blue and the sun is warm. It was stated by the TVs, the hopeful children, and the bitterest villains, by the reporters and the victims alike. All Might was a symbol of peace. But it was only when he saw All Might's wrathful gaze as he walked towards the villains, posture firm and fists clenched, that Izuku understood what the title truly meant. It meant more than just smiling in the face of danger or standing for what's right in a world so devoid of that. It meant even more than being the strongest hero. It meant power, in the most primal sense of the word. Power strong enough to blast through anything and anyone, strong enough to crush the world under his palm. Were he a villain, All Might would have the power to tear through human civilization brick by bloody brick, without a single hero being capable of standing in his way. And yet he didn't. He fought for peace instead. That was what the symbol of peace was at his core. Almighty power wielded only for good, always with a smile on his face. And that was the enemy these villains were looking for, yearning for. But this time, All Might's smile was gone. Outmatched didn't even begin to describe their situation. As it was, Izuku had to fight back the panic in his veins to take the opportunity to jump back and away from the creature's grasp. With One For All rising to the surface of his skin like a coating of fire, the ground gave way to his immeasurable force, shattering as he kicked at it to fly at Tsuyu, whilst the villains were distracted. The girl was in his arms before the one they called Tomura had the time to blink, and in a second, they were near some rubble and away from him and his creature both. No, that's not right at all. He saw it then, in the second he had to gaze at the blue-haired menace. His body had clenched in tension, eyes filled with recognition, feet twisted slightly to intercept them. But he had chosen against it. His eyes went back to All Might almost instantly, once again filled with a strange, sick euphoria that showed in his trembling lips and twisted smile. There was genuine glee mixed in with the unreadable hatred in his eyes, as if he had just received the sweetest of birthday gifts, and Izuku was suddenly aware of exactly what that meant. That man, Tomura, could have stopped them if he desired. He just didn't care enough to. In his eyes, they were nothing. No, less than nothing. Just nameless children for him to pass the time while waiting for All Might, the final boss. That was what all of this training amounted to? A pebble in the villain's path?
Midoriya, calm down.
Asui's words snapped him out of his disbelieving stupor. Had he been panicking? Maybe. But this was not the time. He was All Might's successor, a hero in training. If he let himself panic at a time like this, how could he ever call himself a hero? Right, Izuku muttered, taking a deep breath as All Might took a step forward. We have to focus. His eyes scanned their surroundings. All Might's steps were slow and deliberate, attracting everyone's eyes towards his towering visage as he approached both Tomura and his creature, the thing they had called Nomu. Each step he took seemed to make the earth tremble beneath his feet, but instead of cowering, the League of Villains seemed to glow with sick anticipation. You kept me waiting, hero. The last word was spat with contempt beyond measure, but there was still some sick glee to be heard in his voice. But All Might didn't answer. He just kept walking, even as the villainous masses cowered at his sight alone. And Izuku knew what he had to do. It was shown to him in the form of Aizawa Sensei's form, bruised and broken at the creature's feet, surrounded by the blood he'd bled to save them. Before, he would have asked himself, what would Sir do? What would All Might do? But that was then, and this was now. Sir would tell him to stay put and trust in All Might. All Might would tell him to sit tight and run to safety. But Deku, the hero, would stop at nothing to save someone's life. So, we don't have time. Can you wrap your tongue around me? He didn't have to look at her to see the mix of fear and curiosity forming in her eyes.
What are you planning, Midoriya?
They're all distracted by All Might. As soon as he makes a move, I'm moving in and grabbing Sensei. Then, I need you to pull me back. Got it?
Ah.
That was as far as she got. A hurricane. That was the best word he could think of to describe All Might's movement. A single step sent sharp winds twisting around him. In a second, all of the nameless goons that surrounded them were on the floor. In a single second, Tomura had been blown back by a few feet by the wind alone, the strange hand that covered his face falling to the ground beside him. In a single second more, Aizawa had been retrieved and placed in front of them. Aizawa, I am sorry. It was unbelievable. No, more than that, it was otherworldly. But it was not enough to comfort him. Before, as they were entering the USJ, when questioned about All Might's absence, 13 had held up 3 fingers. 3 hours, All Might's limits. And that was why, as everyone gazed upon the number 1 hero's form with eyes shining with awe, Izuku Midoriya felt only dread. All Might, you can't! The hero didn't as much as turn his face to look at him. His eyes were kept on the goal, without the time to spare on needless worries, and Izuku felt panic swirl in his chest like an ugly beast once more. These villains have a plan to kill you! This entire ambush was organized to... Young Midoriya! Those 2 words were more than enough to see him. All Might had to be in pain, had to be nervous, had to be angry, but there was no worry in those words. And then he turned to stare at him, his single visible eye burning bright with cerulean light, and Izuku could finally breathe again. All Might was smiling as he did on TV. And if All Might was smiling, everything will be okay! Yeah, he was right. So Deku nodded at him, looking 1,000 times more confident than he truly felt, and spoke his next words carefully, eyes darting to the villains that still stood. The blue-haired man can decay anything he touches, and the one that looks like mist can create portals around him. They're probably going to play support. The main threat is the creature. I don't know what it does exactly, but it was brought here to kill you. A single sharp nod answered his words, but little more than that. And then, with a step so calm it might as well be called leisurely, the ground shattered under his feet. Shigaraki, for his part, did little more than utter the creature's name. Nomu. But the beast would hear his unspoken order and meet his foe head-on, lifting a gaze so inhumane that to meet it would freeze a lesser man. 2 unstoppable forces met halfway, and the world itself screamed their glory. The shockwave alone sent Izuku and Tsuyu careening back into the ground in its vigor, and even the unshakable Shigaraki had taken a step back in anticipation. As for All Might, Izuku's eyes widened. All Might wasn't winning. No, rather, it made more sense to say he wasn't accomplishing anything at all. His fist hit the creature with enough force to split the very wind around his arms, but Nomu did little to indicate the blows had done anything at all. Instead, the creature advanced with a pivot off its feet, too stiff to be anything but artificial, and slammed its fist against the number 1 hero's face. And the look on the villain's face, the smile that split his lips, the eagerness in his eyes as he spoke to something Izuku couldn't hear. He had expected this. His knees trembled. He had to help. But first, his eyes traveled to Eraserhead, bleeding on the floor and covered in wounds. Carefully, he lifted the man's body and took a second to make sure his grasp on it was firm. One for All was familiar enough now that he didn't really need the meditation exercise, but it helped anyway. To calm his nerves, he envisioned the oxygen in his blood, flowing in and out of his heart with each second. His heartbeat, erratic but constant, still there, still going, calmed him. His inherited power answered his call, and full Cowling burst into life with its characteristic green arcs of lightning. Izuku turned his gaze to Tsuyu. Tsu, can you hold on to my back?
If you're sure, Ribbit. Do be careful, Midoriya.
He paused, contemplated the growing pain in his hands, now suffering under the weight of Aizawa's body, contemplated the gash in his left leg, already staining the dark fabric of his pants. Then he spoke. Don't worry, Tsu, I can handle it. His smile felt fake, but she bought into it without much protest, wrapping her hands around his neck from the back. She was considerably lighter than Aizawa, thankfully, so it wasn't too much of an extra burden to support her weight alongside theirs as he bent his legs, inhaled, and jumped with all the power he could muster, heading back towards the entrance of the USJ. Most of the villains beneath them had already been defeated, he nodded dutifully, landing on a piece of rubble before jumping again. The nameless goons seemed to have mostly given up, been knocked out, or tried to escape, probably as a result of All Might's appearance. There was a group of students still gathered by the entrance, next to the collapsed form of... Bile rose to his throat. 13. so the villains had taken out 13. His feet met the ground a few feet in front of them, and he deliberately kept his gaze away from the pro-hero's prone visage. Once, Sir Nighteye told him this: "If you truly want to be a pro-hero, you will have to learn to focus on the goal and only the goal, Midoriya." Right, he had spluttered, perhaps a little intimidated, before pausing. But isn't that what everyone does? Sir had paused then, as if remembering something incredibly painful. Then, a pro-hero's job is to save. That being said, we cannot save everyone, not even All Might. When you become a hero, you will have to learn this. The most important part of the job is knowing how to steal your heart, steal your gut, and keep your eyes on the future. 13's suit had been ripped open. He couldn't see inside it, but if what he read only was true, that was a grievous injury to the hero. They could die. But there was nothing Izuku could do. So Izuku did as Sir had told him to. He let his heart turn to steel and refused to look at the fallen hero, keeping his eyes on Uraraka's own as he gently laid Eraserhead down. He needs medical care. There were tears on the girl's eyes, but she only nodded, and Izuku was thankful for that. The others converged around them, questions on their tongues and eyes as they were forced to come to terms with the situation they were in, but Izuku heard nothing but static. "Keep your eyes on the future," Sir had said. He looked back at the fight, felt the slashing winds curling against the clashing titans. "I'll need you to take care of them for me."
What do you mean, Midori?
He had already jumped back into the fray by the time she had finished her sentence. He knew it was suicidal. He knew it was insane. Izuku was strong, but next to them, next to All Might, his harnessed torch might as well be a flickering candle. If he tried to interfere, he'd just stand in All Might's way. However, he had seen them, the Mist Villain and the one called Shigaraki Tomura, watching, waiting, learning. Expecting a moment to interfere, he could recognize a spark in Shigaraki's eyes. He trusted All Might with his life. He did. But he didn't trust them. If he was truly in a clash of forces of nature, a fight so beyond his scope it might as well be one between gods, he could do little but interfere with the meddling of mortal men. There! So, still in the air, he grabbed 5 marbles from the few he still had with him, holding them tightly between the fingers of a clenched fist, and aimed. All Might weaved between blows, grabbing the Nomu by the waist in the preparation of a suplex. The crushed concrete under their feet spread in a cloud of dust, disturbed by the crash of 2 men, if Nomu was a man, moving at speeds no man should muster. The Mist Villain stepped forward. He saw a flash of purple form as All Might moved to smash the villain's head against the floor. Izuku threw the marbles with a practiced flick of the wrist. The man with the light hair turned with a flinch and an enraged look, having caught in on the movement around them. But he was too late. The marble smashed into the metal plates under the Mist Villain's neck with a resounding noise of steel being torn, and All Might smashed the Nomu's head against the floor with enough force to shatter it more. Thus, it exploded. It had happened before, if on a lesser scale, but Izuku was still surprised as the very ground beneath his feet simply seemed to cease to be, turning into a sea of flying debris and dust with the powerful crash that came after the blow. That was the power of one for all. But the Nomu was unfazed. It groaned still, digging fingers on All Might's arms and drawing blood with its unrelenting force. "Got you, you damn!" Tomura's hands were inches away from his face. There wasn't time to panic, to wonder or to fear, just the sudden realization of, oh, I'm going to die. And then a veritable glacier erupted from the ground and slammed into Shigaraki. Todoroki Shoto emerged from behind the block of ice, looking as calm as he always had when Izuku laid eyes on him. Their eyes met for a moment, maybe 2, and there was a spark of something in Todoroki's eyes, but finally, he nodded at Izuku and looked back at Shigaraki, who had long since gotten up. "Don't let your guard down," he uttered softly. He was right, of course. He'd let the man use an advantage he recognized from the get-go to sneak up on him. That would have been a killing blow had Todoroki not intervened, and not an unavoidable one either. This was his first battle. Izuku knew he still had a lot to learn, but he swore to himself, right there and then, that he would never let something like that happen again. Instead, he scanned the arena with as much cool as he could muster. He caught sight of All Might, trading blows with the Nomu at ridiculous speeds. He caught sight of Bakugo, running with Kirishima towards the still-recovering Mist Villain, who looked like he'd seen better days. He looked at Todoroki, standing beside him with his head high, and at Shigaraki, who suddenly looked a lot less confident. "Todoroki-kun," Izuku spoke out loud, letting the fear fade from his heart. "Let's take him out." "Oh?" Shigaraki intoned from across the field of debris, cracking his neck with a strange expression on his face, as if stuck between a predatory grin and a deranged scowl. "I thought you were fodder, but I guess you're a mini-boss instead. A fight with a timer. Alright then, let's see how much EXP you can give." Thank you all for indulging yourselves in the story thus far. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, there are a few more things that I like to go over before the video ends. Firstly, we've got a second channel called Anime Deep Dive. Anime Deep Dive goes over the hard facts and lore of a variety of anime. It's sure to expand your weeb knowledge for all kinds of series guaranteed. On top of that, we have a third channel called We the Celestials Naruto What Ifs. It's what we do on this channel already, but in the vast world and lore of Naruto. Go check it out if you're in the mood for some jutsu action! Secondly, on behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details will be in the description below. Lastly, if you're interested in what we do here at We the Celestials, then I would like to extend out an invitation to join the team. The only caveat being we only accept members 16 years and up to join our crew. You can sign up for whichever category fulfills your interest by joining the recruitment Discord using the link in the description below. Our Discord is an all-around fantastic place to be. Whether you're a fan or looking to join our band of misfits, we're always looking for members to join us. Well, that's it from us for today's video, so thank you all for watching and have a great day!